You're not overlooked because you're not good enough. You're overlooked because you're always available, always present, always saying, "It's okay," even when you're exhausted inside. In many relationships, that kind of unconditional kindness, the very thing you thought would make people value you more, ends up making you invisible, not because people are bad, but because human nature has a blind spot. Anything without boundaries eventually stops being seen as valuable. We often believe that real love will naturally know how to cherish us. But Carl Jung, the thinker who explored the deepest layers of the human psyche, pointed out that what remains unconscious will quietly control our behavior. And often, it's the shadow sides of others, their selfishness, their blind spots, their insecurities, that react negatively to kindness without limits. This video isn't just about being kind. It's about how you show up, about how not to lose your worth while keeping your heart. If you've ever felt taken for granted just because you were too willing, watch until the end. You might finally hear something no one has ever clearly told you. Number 1. Your kindness triggers insecurity in others. Some people feel uncomfortable when you treat them with genuine kindness. You offer sincerity, support, and compassion, but they respond with silence, suspicion, or even contempt. This can leave kind-hearted people confused. Why does this happen? Am I too weak? Did I do something wrong? Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This isn't just a nudge towards self-reflection. It also explains the discomfort your kindness can cause. When you act with integrity, you might become a mirror reflecting the parts of others they've rejected in themselves. And not everyone is ready to face that reflection. In analytical psychology, Jung called this projection an unconscious process where people attribute traits, emotions, or motives they can't accept in themselves to someone else. We often hear about this with negative traits like anger, jealousy, or greed. But projection works with positive qualities too. When someone can't recognize their own kindness, sincerity, or trust, they may view those traits in others with suspicion, even discomfort. So your kindness, however honest, might unintentionally stir up their inner insecurities. They're not reacting to you, but to what you represent, perhaps a version of themselves that once trusted and got hurt, or a part of them that once wanted to live kindly, but was dismissed as naive. When they look at you, they don't just see a person, they see a reminder, a wake-up call to something they've buried. This insecurity can show up subtly, a cautious glance when you help them, a joke with a hint of contempt, or a sudden coldness after you reach out. Kind people, unaware of this psychological pattern, often take it personally. But you need to understand, this resistance isn't about something you did wrong. It's a sign of unresolved tension within them. In environments where giving always comes with conditions, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Be smart, don't let anyone use you. Pure kindness can look suspicious. People may silently wonder, what's the catch? Or, there must be a reason behind this. In such a mindset, kindness seems strange, and the person showing it seems even stranger. Picture this. At work, you see a colleague struggling, so you quietly take on part of their load, Maybe they feel unworthy of kindness, or were once hurt after receiving something similar. Your gesture stirred a memory they weren't ready for. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to make them understand. You just need to stay calm and not assume their withdrawal is your fault. Living with kindness doesn't mean endlessly giving, no matter the cost. Jung emphasized that no one becomes whole without facing their shadow, and sometimes that shadow isn't just the dark within, but the inability to receive light when it arrives. Some reject kindness because they don't feel worthy of it. Others because it reminds them of what they once lost. And some simply because they're not ready to give in return. Everyone carries their own history, and not all histories leave space for kindness to land without resistance. So what should we do? First, don't change who you are just to avoid being misunderstood. Kindness is a choice, and it only matters if it's made consciously, not to win approval. Second, practice separating others' reactions from your self-worth. When someone rejects you, resist the urge to ask, "What did I do wrong?" Instead, ask, "Could I have touched something they weren't ready to face?" That shift in question helps you keep your peace and your dignity. And finally, remind yourself of this. Kindness isn't something to prove. It's something to live by. When you no longer need to be understood, you move through life more freely. When you stop waiting for recognition, you start to see more clearly who truly appreciates you. Because sincerity, even when dismissed, doesn't vanish. It settles within you like solid ground. And when you meet the right people in the right places, it flows again, effortlessly. If your kindness has ever been misunderstood, remember, it's not a sign that you need to change your nature. It's a sign that you need to protect it better. Kindness doesn't hurt people. It's the lack of awareness around how to use it that makes us vulnerable. In the next section, we'll explore a deeper layer. When your kindness doesn't just unsettle individuals, but challenges the very norms of a culture that prizes detachment, cleverness, and control. When being kind becomes disruptive, not just to one person, but to an entire system, and that too is not a bad thing. Number 2. Kindness breaking social rules meets resistance. Many people don't realize that the shadow Jung spoke of isn't just a personal concept, it exists on a collective level too. Societies have shadows, qualities, behaviors, or ways of thinking deemed unacceptable and pushed beneath the surface. In a culture that glorifies power, competition, toughness, and efficiency, values like empathy, humility, or selfless action are often labeled as weaknesses. They get buried in the collective unconscious. In such an atmosphere, if you act kindly without an agenda, you don't just stand out, you present something the group has learned to reject. That's why people react. Not to you directly, but to the part of themselves they once allowed to be kind, but no longer dare to show. In other words, your presence unintentionally awakens a shadow they've worked hard to suppress. Someone who's been hurt by being taken advantage of learns to become guarded. Someone whose kindness was once dismissed hides it behind sharpness. When they meet you, someone still living by values they've abandoned, the emotion that rises isn't admiration, it's defensiveness. This is where projection kicks in. They offload their discomfort onto you by criticizing, mocking, or dismissing you. Jung once said the shadow isn't just the bad in us, it's anything left behind in our effort to become acceptable. In a society where strength is seen as success, kindness is seen as a liability. So when a kind person enters that space, they're not just inconvenient, they're a living reminder of a version of ourselves we've left behind. That's why the resistance you face isn't because you're wrong. It's society's way of defending the values it's chosen to keep and avoiding the ones it's rejected. Your kindness, in that context, is a gentle disruption, but enough to shake the collective assumptions. No one likes to be reminded of what they once gave up. You might have felt out of place in a crowd, not because you're too kind, but because you're honest in a space where honesty doesn't feel safe, and that touches something deep in others, not the bad, but the real, forced into hiding. Picture this. You're in a meeting where everyone's subtly competing for recognition. You offer sincere feedback, expecting no credit. You suggest a path forward that benefits the group, not just yourself. The result? You're overlooked. Worse, you're seen as lacking assertiveness or even pushed out of key decisions. The problem isn't the value of what you said. It's that society has conditioned people to believe, if you're not promoting yourself, you have no value. Many people live in that mindset, where everything is transactional. They grow up believing no one does anything for free, no one's kind without an agenda. When they meet someone who's genuinely kind, they don't feel peace, they feel threatened, because you're living proof of a world they don't believe exists. And to protect their belief system, they'll either have to change or reject you. Why does this matter? Because if you don't understand this mechanism, you'll start to doubt yourself. You'll think you're too sensitive, too soft, too different. And then you'll either force yourself to fit in or withdraw. Values, a habit that reconnects you to yourself, like journaling, walking, or simply spending an evening in solitude. When you have that space, you stop expecting every environment to embrace your kindness, and that frees you from unnecessary disappointment or hurt. Society's pushback against kindness doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're ahead of where some people are in their self-reflection. And if you understand that, you'll gain patience, not to persuade others, but to protect your kindness from being distorted by misunderstanding or neglect. When a kind person is misunderstood, they don't need to change to be accepted. What they need is to keep living with the awareness that kindness isn't naivety. It's a clear decision in a world that often isn't. And sometimes, the quiet, steady presence of someone like that is what plants a small seed in the collective unconscious, a seed of belief that it is still possible to live truthfully without losing yourself. But to live truthfully without self-betrayal, you also need to know where your kindness comes from. Is it rooted in clarity or habit, in awareness, or a need to be seen? That question leads us to another part of the picture. What happens when kindness stops being intentional? When it slips beyond the boundaries of awareness and becomes something you do simply because you don't know how to stop? That's where we'll go next. The blurry line between compassion and self-abandonment. Number 3, too much kindness. Looks weak. It's not your kindness that makes people disrespect you. The real issue is kindness without boundaries. When you're generous without limits, people don't just misunderstand you. You start losing sight of where you stand in every relationship. Humans instinctively test each other's limits, not out of malice, but as a way of measuring who will back down, who will say no, who will stay silent and endure. If you're always saying yes, always showing up, always helping no matter how exhausted you are, then eventually you stop being seen as someone who gives. You become something expected, like a chair in the corner, always there, no thanks required. Psychologists call this the benevolence exploitation effect. People don't need to be cruel to take advantage of kindness. Sometimes they just don't see any clear boundaries, so they keep pushing. They ask for more. They expect more. And slowly, they stop appreciating you. Your presence becomes background noise, not a gift, just a given. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In that unconscious shadow, we don't just hide anger or envy. We bury strength too, the strength to pause, to say no, to protect ourselves on purpose. When we reject those parts of ourselves, we give away a crucial piece of our inner power. And whether we like it or not, the world picks up on that, often in ways that sting. Imagine you're a beautiful house, always open. People come in, eat, rest, stay the night. At first, they thank you. But without any house rules, no schedule, no boundaries, they start acting like you don't need privacy, rest, or respect. And eventually, you're drained, alone, and questioning. Is there something wrong with being kind? No, kindness isn't the problem. But kindness needs a filter, a way to know when to give, when to stop, and when to say no so you can keep something for yourself. Let me tell you a story. It's short, but it might help you see all of this more clearly. Beyond the theories, there was a man named Thomas, the kind of person everyone wants in their life. Loved by co-workers, trusted by friends, respected by neighbors. He smiled. He helped. He showed up. "I just want people to feel lighter when they're around me," he said. Sounds noble, right? But what no one knew was, Thomas couldn't sleep at night. He lay awake, haunted by a question he never dared speak. Why do I feel so small and invisible? Even though I'm so kind. He never said it out loud, but deep inside, resentment crept in. Not toward anyone in particular, just a vague, constant sense that he was being used, overlooked, taken for granted. Sometimes, when someone dismissed his ideas in a meeting or interrupted him mid-sentence, he felt like a child again, voiceless, insignificant. One day, after an exhausting shift, Thomas agreed to help a coworker move. It was raining. He carried box after box up 3 flights of stairs, soaking wet. Not a word of thanks. That night, He sat on his balcony and cried, not from fatigue, but because at that moment he realized, I'm not doing this just because I'm kind. I'm doing this because I want to feel valued, and nobody sees that. Thomas's kindness was real, but so was the shadow behind it, the need to be acknowledged, loved, seen as important. And because he couldn't admit that to himself, he kept giving, hoping someone else would validate him. The result? A cycle of giving, hoping, hurting. Kindness turned into a quiet form of self-abandonment. This is the paradox Jung spoke of. The shadow isn't just where we hide the bad, it's where we hide the real. Our need to be respected, our right to say no, our right to be angry without shame. Many people, like Thomas, believe they're doing the right thing, but in truth, they're confusing kindness with silence, love with self-erasure, approval and with limits. When people see you know where your line is, they stop treating you like a resource, and they start seeing you as a person. Only then can real respect begin. Before we move on to the final 2 reasons, I truly hope this video has been helpful. If it has, let me know by liking it. That's not just support for this channel, it's a sign that this message meant something to you. And if so, I'll keep going even deeper in the next ones. Now let's dive into the 4th reason. Number 4. Generosity can look like self-sacrifice. Have you ever found yourself in a situation like this? A friend needs help moving, so you put your plans aside and show up. Next time, they ask if you can babysit for a few hours and you say yes. Then they borrow money, and you lend it without a second thought. You tell yourself, I'm just helping when I can. But then something shifts. They stop thanking you like they used to. They don't hesitate to ask anymore. One time, they even get upset because you replied to a message late. Sound familiar? That feeling of becoming someone's backup plan, always there when needed, but never truly appreciated. When you're consistently kind without setting boundaries, you don't just give. You unintentionally create an image of yourself in others' eyes. Someone who doesn't need anything, never asks for anything, and is always available. Once that image forms, every action you take is seen through that lens. You apologize for being late. They brush it off. You're always around anyway. You say you're tired? They ignore it. You're not the type to complain. Little by little, you disappear from your own story. This isn't a problem with kindness. It's a problem with generosity that isn't protected by boundaries. That kind of giving slowly turns into self-neglect. And you are the first to feel the consequences, emotionally, energetically, and in how people perceive you. Many kind people wonder why they feel lonely, even though they're deeply involved in others' lives. They feel out of place even among friends. Why? Because they show up as helpers, fixers, supporters, not as full human beings with their own emotional needs and limits. When you always put others first, people forget that you have your own priorities too. A woman I used to work with once shared her story. For years, she was the understanding friend in her group. Anyone going through heartbreak turned to her. Whenever there was conflict, she played the peacemaker. She listened, she comforted, she stayed patient. But when she hit a rough patch, no one checked in. Not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't imagine her struggling. In their minds, she didn't need help. She was the rock. And rocks aren't supposed to crack. That's the price of being endlessly available. The more accessible you are, the less people value your presence. They start to see it as routine, like the sun rising each morning. Constant, dependable, easy to overlook. And the more generous you are, the easier it is to fall into a dangerous trap, forgetting that kindness should come with conditions, not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. When we show up without questioning, we lose the ability to tell which relationships are healthy and which are one-sided. Giving constantly doesn't make people love you more. In many cases, it makes them stop asking, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Would you like to be heard?" Here's one way to check in with yourself. Look at your past week. How many times did you help someone? How many times did you say no to prioritize yourself? How many people genuinely asked what you needed? The numbers won't just show how you live. They'll show how others see you. The point isn't to stop helping. It's to examine why you help. Generosity needs management, not in a cold, calculating way, but in a conscious one. You wouldn't give money without checking your wallet. Likewise, don't give emotional energy without checking your reserves, because when you're drained, very few people will notice. They're used to seeing you just fine. Learn to show up selectively, not because you're selfish, but because your presence becomes more meaningful. When you appear at the right moment, with the right energy, in the right spirit, your kindness has weight. It's no longer a reflex. It becomes a gift. Learn to disappear too. Yes, disappear from conversations that drain you, from group chats where you're always the one initiating, from roles where you're always the fixer. Sometimes, the only way to be fully seen is to step back. Someone once told me, I stopped helping, stopped reaching out, stopped being the rock. And what surprised me most was that I finally saw who truly cared. When you stop running toward others, you begin to see who walks toward you. And that's the most valuable insight of all. When you put yourself back at the center of your own life, you're not just protecting yourself, you're building healthier relationships with the world. A world where kindness isn't taken for granted. A world where people need you, but also appreciate you. When you learn this, you stop feeling resentful when someone takes you for granted. You realize it's the outcome of a pattern you helped create, and you can change that bit by choosing to show up with intention, by relearning how to say no without guilt, by letting others see that you too need, want, get tired, and deserve love. And from there, you begin to show up, not as someone who's always available, but as someone fully present. Slowly, as you reclaim parts of your caretaker. They assumed she didn't need to be cared for. Over time, she stopped feeling like an equal in the group, and more like someone orbiting on the outside, supporting, not belonging. It all began with her generosity, with kindness that had no boundaries. Kindness, when not managed, can turn into a quiet service. The receiver gets used to receiving. The giver starts to feel invisible. The kinder you are, the easier it is for people to equate your presence with availability, as if you have no needs, no limits, no reason to ever say no. That's when kindness starts losing its value. There's a common trait among people who feel unappreciated or taken for granted in their relationships. They often struggle to say no. They fear disappointing others, fear disrupting the peace, fear being seen as selfish. But ironically, that same eagerness to please makes others respect them less, not out of malice, but because people instinctively respond to boundaries. Those who set clear limits are often seen as more reliable and more respected. We often believe that being endlessly available will make people appreciate us more. But in reality, unconditional presence, without a sense of agency, can cause others to stop trying. If you're always the one texting first, making plans, checking in, eventually the other person stops feeling the need to do any of that. Not because they don't care, but because they don't have to. Kindness without boundaries can make you invisible. You're not gone, but you're no longer seen as a person with needs, limits, or values of your own. The most painful thing isn't rejection, it's being treated like background noise, present but unnoticed. This shows up even more clearly in close relationships. A wife who always manages everything, housework, meals, schedules, without expressing her own needs, can become part of the family system rather than someone her partner actively sees and cares for. Sacrifice, if not expressed intentionally, is too easily mistaken for obligation. And when that happens, love begins to lose its balance. This doesn't mean you have to stop being kind. You shouldn't silence your generosity just because others fail to appreciate it. But you must understand this. If you don't show people that your kindness is a conscious choice, they'll assume you couldn't choose otherwise. And if they believe you can't say no, they'll stop asking you if you want to say yes. You might still want to help, to listen, to be there when someone needs you. But ask yourself, are you giving because you genuinely want to, or because you feel guilty if you don't? Are you afraid that saying no will cost you the relationship? Are you afraid that if you're not always there, you'll no longer be needed? Kindness doesn't have to be a never-ending stream. It can be like a deep well, sometimes dry, sometimes in need of time to refill. And that's what gives it value. Someone who always smiles, always agrees, always shows up, makes it hard for others to see their depth. But someone who knows when to be silent, when to decline, when to step back, that person creates a kind of gravity. Others feel it, they pay attention, they respect it. The real question isn't whether you should be kind. It's whether your kindness is coming from a place of awareness. Are you choosing who receives it, or giving it blindly to everyone? Does your kindness have a shape, clear enough that others don't confuse it with self-sacrifice? Your availability is a gift, but if you leave that gift on the doorstep every day, unwrapped, with no note, no limits, people will stop opening the door. Not out of cruelty, but because that's how familiarity works. It fades into the background. That doesn't mean you need to be cold or distant. In fact, people who value their own kindness tend to give more meaningfully. They give with thoughtfulness and care, and others are more likely to feel grateful because they recognize it as a true gift. And maybe the scariest part isn't that people will stop needing you. It's that in trying so hard to always be there, you forget who you are without that role. Let your kindness carry weight. Let your presence have boundaries. Let others remember that you're there. Not because you have to be, but because you choose to be. Only then will your kindness be seen as part of your worth, not just someone else's habit. We've just walked through 5 reasons why kindness, when it lacks boundaries, can lead to being overlooked. You've seen how unconditional availability is often mistaken for obligation, how limitless generosity can make people assume you have no needs of your own, how sincere kindness, when met with insecure or defensive people, can trigger negative reactions instead of appreciation. And in a society that prizes competition and assertiveness, kindness can sometimes be misread as weakness or being out of touch. But that doesn't mean you have to change who you are. Kindness is still a powerful strength, but as Carl Jung once said, true power only arises when you become aware of the shadows, both within yourself and in others. It's those unseen parts, the ones that resist, reject, and devalue what's worthy, that often shape how people respond to your goodness. And if you're unaware of this, you might wrongly believe the problem lies with you. You don't need to stop being kind. What you need is to learn how to be kind with intention. When kindness is offered consciously, it not only avoids being undervalued, it becomes a clear expression of emotional intelligence and inner strength. So what about you? Have you ever felt overlooked? Have you ever felt like you are a living antenna, where just stepping into a room immediately makes you pick up all the emotions around you? When others are happy, you feel joy. When they are sad, you feel heavy. When they are angry, your heart suddenly tightens. That is not a coincidence. It is a sign that you belong to the group known as empaths, souls sensitive enough to deeply connect with the invisible energy of others. Yet this very gift can also become a burden, because if they don't know how to protect it, empaths can easily become victims of their own sensitivity, exhausted, anxious, and disconnected from their true selves. But among the sea of empaths, there is a rare group, those Carl Jung referred to as awakened souls. They not only feel, but also learn to master their sensitivity. They turn it into wisdom, into a compass, guiding their lives. In today's video, we will explore 5 secret habits that only the wisest empaths possess. These habits are not loud or showy, but they are powerful enough to help an empath escape the spiral of negativity, nurture pure energy, and radiate a presence that makes the world pause and listen. Are you truly ready to step into this journey, to transform sensitivity from a burden into a hidden form of power? Number 1. Cleansing invisible energy. Have you ever wondered why there are days when you do nothing physically demanding, yet your body feels drained, your spirit heavy, as if carrying the weight of the world? It's not because you are weak, but because you are an empath, someone with the ability to absorb emotional energy from the environment around them. A complaint, a burst of anger, even the tense atmosphere in a room, all seep into you like a sponge absorbing water. And by the end of the day, you feel exhausted without knowing why. But within the stream of empaths, there is a small group Jung called awakened souls. The wise ones who know that emotions, like food, must be chosen and purified. They do not allow themselves to become a dumping ground for all energetic waste, but instead practice spiritual dieting, choosing what nourishes, discarding what is toxic. This is the first secret that only the wisest empaths possess, the ability to cleanse invisible energy. Empaths are often like radios tuned to every frequency. They pick up signals from everything: laughter, tears, anxiety, anger. If a colleague walks into the room with a heavy mood, an empath immediately feels their chest tighten, even if no words are spoken. If a loved one is sad, the empath carries that sadness to bed, tossing and turning all night. This makes them easily exhausted because they have no protective boundaries. But wise empaths understand that not all energy should be kept. They know when to stop before being overwhelmed, much like someone who chooses clean food for their body. They select conversations, avoid news saturated with tragedy, turn off intense music when their soul needs quiet. More importantly, they develop personal cleansing rituals, deep breathing, meditation, or simply walking in nature to shed emotions that don't belong to them. I once knew a woman who always began her day by opening her phone and scrolling through endless headlines, accidents, epidemics, political scandals. By 7 a.m., her lose their own essence. Cleansing energy is not selfish. It is how the self, the true core, is preserved. Research in energy psychology also shows that humans are strongly influenced by emotional environments. Constant exposure to negative information keeps the nervous system in alert mode, releasing cortisol, the stress hormone, leading to fatigue and gloom. On the other hand, when we choose positive environments, gentle music, fresh nature, warm conversations, the nervous system relaxes and energy is restored. This proves that cleansing energy is not just a spiritual concept, but also scientifically grounded. Perhaps you too have experienced unexplained fatigue. Try this small practice. Tomorrow morning, instead of checking your phone, sit quietly for 5 minutes and ask yourself, what nourishes my soul today? It could be soft music, a page from a book, or simply a hot cup of tea. When you start choosing like this daily, your inner energy becomes clearer. You realize peace is not a luxury, but a state you can create by choice. The change doesn't need to be dramatic. Just small, steady steps gradually restore balance to your soul. Cleansing invisible energy is not a luxury. It is self-protection. Just as you wash your hands before eating to avoid germs, you must also wash your mind to avoid toxic energy. It's how you keep yourself from being dragged into the world's chaos. And when you do this, you will find yourself not only less tired, but also clearer, radiating a calm field that brings peace to others too. Are you ready to begin tomorrow morning without rushing into the news, without diving straight into the storm, but instead taking a few minutes to cleanse your soul? If yes, leave an emoji in the comments, a small commitment that you are choosing purity for yourself. And what about you? Have you ever gone through a day of exhaustion because you absorbed too much energy from others? Share your story in the comments, because perhaps your experience may inspire another empath who is learning to protect their soul. And once an empath learns how to cleanse invisible energy, they finally have the foundation to move into the second secret, creating a sacred space for themselves. Number 2, creating a sacred space for yourself. Have you ever come home after a long, exhausting day, only to feel suffocated by noise, clutter, and waiting responsibilities? In that moment, you wished for a place just for yourself, where you could shut out the outside world, breathe, listen, and return to yourself. That is not luxury, it is a necessity of the soul. Jung called this place temenos, a sacred space meant only for you, where the soul is protected and healed. In ancient Greek, the word referred to a sacred enclosure where people entered and felt shielded, separated from the outside world, returning to their core. For Jung, temenos was not only physical, but a spiritual space, a refuge for the soul, where it is allowed to be whole without intrusion. For empaths, especially women with strong intuition, creating such a temenos is essential. If cleansing invisible energy is like washing your hands after touching the world's dirt, then this step goes further, building a shelter that nurtures the soul, an oasis to restore and preserve a pure energetic field. Because empaths are not only easily influenced by the outside, they also need a land to remind them they have the right to return to themselves without being available to everyone at all times. Picture a wise empath woman stepping away from the noisy wheel of life to her small corner. It may be a sunlit room with favorite books and a green plant, a small altar with a candle glowing and incense filling the air, or just a chair by the window where she sits quietly, watching the light paint golden hues on leaves. In any form, that is her temenos, the sacred space she weaves for herself. The beauty of temenos is that it doesn't need to be grand or mystical. It can be as simple as a small balcony where every morning you make tea and breathe deeply. Its value lies in its boundary. This is where I am myself. No one has the right to intrude. That boundary brings safety and recharges the empath's energy. One woman shared that she lived in a cramped apartment with constant family pressure, with no private space. But she still created her sacred corner, just a small desk by the window with a vase of flowers, a candle, and a notebook. Every evening she wrote down her emotions, breathing deeply a few times. This habit saved her from exhaustion, a secret doorway back to herself. Imagine an oasis in the desert. The desert is vast and harsh like the outside world, always noisy, always draining empaths. Without an oasis, the traveler collapses, but with one stream of water and shade, they recover. The sacred space an empath creates is that oasis where they find water, shade, and their own breath. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to become yourself, you need a place to hear yourself. The sacred space is the condition for that journey. It is not luxury, it is wisdom. For without it, empaths remain swept away by others' needs. Where you connect more deeply with yourself. It is where you hear the soul's voice, what Jung emphasized in the individuation journey. Only in silence, in private space, do you truly hear what you want, need, and are being called to. Remember, the outside world will never stop being noisy. Work, responsibilities, others' demands will always surround you. If you wait until all is calm to give yourself peace, you'll never have it. Peace must be created, and one of the most powerful ways is building a sacred space. And if these words touch your heart, begin today. Give yourself a corner, a moment, a temenos, where you are allowed to be vulnerable, to breathe deeply, to be yourself. This is not just a gift to yourself, but to the world. Because an empath who protects their sacred space no longer gets lost in chaos, they radiate peace, becoming an oasis for those longing for rest. Number 3. The art of disconnection, empathic fasting. After an empath has created a temenos, a sacred space to retreat and restore their energy, the next step of wisdom is knowing when to deliberately step away from the outer world. Because even the most peaceful space loses its meaning if we never dare to withdraw from constant streams of influence, if we never grant ourselves permission to disconnect. This is the art that wise empaths have mastered, the art of disconnection, also called empathic fasting, a kind of emotional fasting that allows the nervous system and the soul to rest, cleanse, and rebalance. What makes empaths more easily exhausted than anyone else is not weakness, but the fact that they are online too much. They are always tuned in to the world around them, listening, responding, supporting, accompanying. But just as the body needs fasting days to detoxify, the empath's soul also needs intervals where no new energy is absorbed, so they can return to themselves, and only in that pause do they find clarity. Jung once wrote, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos." But to see the order, we must step away from chaos, at least long enough for the mind and soul to settle. The art of disconnection doesn't mean escaping or abandoning life. It is simply a conscious choice, to allow yourself a pause for rest, to let the nervous system release tension, and the soul regain balance. A wise empath understands that if they don't give themselves permission to stop, no one else will do it for them. That is why they practice emotional fasting, reserving time with no social media, no reactions, no chasing after anyone, simply sitting and listening to themselves. One woman shared that her job was serving and taking care of clients. Every day, phones rang endlessly, emails piled up, co-workers came constantly for help. As an empath, she was soft-hearted and always tried to meet every need, though inside she was increasingly worn down. Over time, she noticed she had no energy, snapped at her family, and suffered insomnia. In a therapy session, she was encouraged to try one simple thing. Choose one weekend day for total disconnection. No social media, no emails, no calls. Instead, she walked in the park, read a light book, and sat quietly journaling her feelings. At first, the silence made her uneasy, like she was missing work, missing responsibilities. But after several attempts, she saw clear changes: deeper sleep, less stress, and most importantly, she no longer felt she had to live in constant readiness for others. She realized that one day of disconnection didn't weaken her. On the contrary, it made her stronger and clearer when she returned to work and family. This mirrors the practices of many spiritual and wise figures. In the Bible, Jesus repeatedly left the crowds, retreating to deserts or mountains to pray and be silent. He wasn't abandoning his mission, but regaining inner balance before returning to it. These disconnections reveal a truth. Even those with the greatest responsibilities need periodic separation to preserve clarity of mind and steadiness of heart. That is the moment when true strength is reborn, to walk out again with greater clarity and purer love. Disconnection also helps empaths distinguish which emotions belong to them and which belong to others. When constantly online, empaths easily confuse themselves with external energy. A phone call of complaints, tragic news, a negative message, all can plunge them into heaviness they mistake as their own. But when they stop, withdraw, and remain in stillness, they begin to see, this sadness isn't mine. This anger isn't mine. The beauty is that empathic fasting doesn't require grand gestures. It can begin with small steps. An afternoon without social media, a morning without checking messages, a weekend without heavy conversations. It is about temporarily closing the door to the outside in order to open another door, the one leading inward to peace. Carl Jung reminded us that chaos and order exist together. To find order, we must dare to leave chaos. When empaths allow themselves to disconnect, they step out of noise and glimpse hidden patterns within the soul. At that moment, they are no longer shaken by external currents, but see the bigger picture of their inner life. If you are an empath, how many souls resonate with yours? Number 4. Dialogue with the inner self, active inner dialogue. After empaths learn to disconnect and create spaces of stillness away from external influences, the next step of growth is learning how to turn inward and converse with their own inner self. Because stillness is meaningless if it isn't used for listening. Disconnection takes empaths away from chaos, but inner dialogue is what helps them recognize themselves, distinguishing between emotions that truly belong to them and fragments they have accidentally absorbed from others. Empaths possess a unique capacity for empathy, but this gift carries risk. They easily confuse their own emotions with those of others. A sad look, a casual comment, a heavy atmosphere, all can make an empath believe that sadness, anxiety, or stress are their own. And when they cannot distinguish, they shoulder everything, living with burdens that don't belong to them. This is where wise empaths differ. They practice inner dialogue, turning sensitivity into clear intuition rather than a burden. Carl Jung affirmed, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Inner dialogue is precisely this act of looking inward, It is not anxious self-talk in the head, but a conscious process, sitting down, writing, or whispering questions and answers aloud. A kind of conversation with oneself, linking mind and soul. Picture the empath as a lighthouse keeper at night. Waves crash, ship signals echo, distant lights flicker. Without awareness, the keeper cannot tell which signals matter, which are just noise. But once they observe and discern, they keep the light steady, guiding themselves and others. So it is with empaths. Inner dialogue helps them know which signals are true guidance of the soul and which are only interference. One of the most effective practices is keeping an emotional journal. Wise empaths don't just record daily events, they write feelings too. Today I felt anxious. Where did this come from? Was it truly mine? Or did I absorb it from this morning's conversation with my colleague? Asking and answering on paper makes distinctions clearer. In writing, they see emotions structure. What belongs to them stays. What comes from others is released. Thus, the journal becomes a tool for healing, not just notes. One woman shared that she always felt drained after meeting friends, even if conversations weren't negative. Through journaling and asking questions, she discovered she often carried her friends' worries. When someone spoke of work stress, she immediately took it in as her own responsibility. Only when she practiced silently asking, "Does this emotion really belong to me?" did she realize most fatigue wasn't hers. And with that, she learned to let go, no longer collapsing without reason. Influential figures in history also practiced such dialogue, even if they didn't call it empathic fasting or active inner dialogue. Marcus Aurelius, philosopher emperor of Rome, left behind Meditations, a journal of conversations with himself. Each page held questions, reminders, lessons he told himself. This is within my control. This is what I must release. And so, amid the throne's immense pressures, he remained calm and clear. For empaths, this is a model. If an emperor needed inner dialogue to keep his mind, how much more essential it is for those sensitive to every smallest vibration. Inner dialogue also prevents empaths from falling into self-doubt. Absorbing so much from outside, they easily lose touch with their true voice. But by practicing questions, they begin to tell apart. This is truly my thought. This is just an echo of someone else. This is a crucial step, shifting them from vulnerable empath to wise empath. Carl Jung emphasized that dialogue with the unconscious is essential for full human development. He called it active imagination, confronting and conversing with inner images and voices. For empaths, this practice brings great power. Instead of being overwhelmed by emotions, they learn to converse, inquire, and turn them into guidance. A worry is no longer a burden, but a signal to look deeper. A sadness is no longer a chain, but a reminder to love themselves more. Try this simple exercise tonight. Before bed, write down 3 questions for yourself. For example, what was my strongest feeling today? Where did it come from? What is it trying to teach me? Then answer honestly, without judgment. In just a few days, you will notice change. Less swept into others' feelings, more sovereign over your inner world. Inner dialogue is not a one-time action, but a daily habit. Like exercise strengthens the body, empaths strengthen their soul through self-conversation. Over time, sensitivity no longer drains them, but becomes refined intuition guiding wise choices. If the first step of wise empaths is cleansing energy, the second is creating sacred space, the third is disconnecting, then the fourth, inner dialogue, is the foundation making all others sustainable. Because only by listening to the true inner voice can you use sensitivity as a gift. Notes seemed simple, but after weeks she saw patterns. Certain people, environments, and activities always drained her, while certain places and actions always restored her. These fragments formed a map, not geographic, but her personal energy map. Jung emphasized that human psychology operates through recurring patterns, and recognizing them brings clarity. Energy mapping is exactly how empaths identify energy patterns in life. Who drains them? Which environments restore them? What activities nurture them? What times of day they are weakest? With the map, they no longer wander blindly but actively navigate their energy. Energy mapping doesn't just show energy drains, it reveals energy gains. Some discover they recharge fastest in nature. Others find clarity in painting, cooking, or meditation. Some realize morning is their golden hour for creativity, while evening suits stillness. As these observations accumulate, empaths build a living map showing how they function, enabling wiser choices. Think of energy mapping as personal science. Not dry statistics, but research into your soul. Each note is a return inward, observing and confirming, this drains me. This revives me. Over time, confusion lessens, because you now have a clear map. Every empath's energy map is unique. What exhausts one may excite another. Comparison is meaningless. Only patient self-observation draws the true map meant for you. This is wisdom, turning sensitivity into lived intelligence instead of burden. Try this exercise. For 1 week daily, write 3 things. 1. What drained you. 2. What restored you. 3. What felt neutral. After 7 days, look back. You will see repeating patterns. Those are the first strokes of your personal energy map. Keep building, and soon it grows sharper, telling you where to stay, what to avoid, who to keep close, who to keep at distance. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For empaths, energy mapping is this process, turning invisible, unconscious influences into visible, conscious data. Then they stop saying, "I'm exhausted and don't know why." Instead, they say, "I see I'm exhausted because I stayed too long in this environment with these people." That shift is from unconsciousness to consciousness, from victim to master. One viewer wrote that she mapped her energy for 3 months. At first, her notes were vague. Tired, no reason. But gradually she realized, most fatigue followed time with friends who constantly complained. From then, she limited those meetings and replaced them with yoga classes. Her energy levels improved dramatically, and she stopped spiraling into negativity. The energy map became her compass for wiser choices. A wise empath knows the energy map is never finished. It shifts with time, life stages, and inner growth. That's why recording isn't about finding permanence, but following change. What once drained you may no longer affect you. What once restored you may need replacing. The map is alive, like you, and always needs renewal. Don't expect instant change when you begin mapping. Like explorers charting new lands, you need time to draw first outlines. But those small steps gradually form a big picture. With a map in hand, you no longer wander blind. You know your path. A wise empath, practicing these 5 secret habits, is like a musician learning to tune their own instrument amid the world's chaos. No longer letting external noise dictate their rhythm, nor forcing themselves to play others' songs. Instead, they find their own melody, clear and steady, to walk firmly through each moment of life. What sets them apart is not sensitivity. Every empath is sensitive. The difference is they transform sensitivity into wisdom, into a map, into a compass. Thus, they are no longer victims of emotion, but masters of energy, masters of their own presence. If you too long to cultivate such wisdom, share this video with friends who carry sensitive hearts so they too may find companionship on this journey. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell, because ahead lies even more profound discoveries of the soul's hidden power through the lens of Carl Jung.